So now I'd like to go over the duplicate function in Maya, and there's a few different ways that you can do this, but it means essentially just duplicating an object, right? And I'll just show you very quickly here. Let's use this object here, right? Let's just say, let's say we wanted to make fence posts or something, okay? Okay, so the first and easiest way to duplicate something in Maya is just simply Control D, right? Control Delta. And that will duplicate the object right on top of itself. Okay, pretty easy. Now, there's another cool function that you can do where you can duplicate an object with a transformation. And what I mean by that is, like, for example, let's just say you were trying to make like a fence, right? And you had all these individual pickets here. So what you can do is you can take the first object, you can hit Control D. You can see that right there, it immediately uploaded. My visualizer with the key strokes I couldn't get that working today. I'm not really sure what was going on with it, but I'll work on that. So Control D first, and then hit Shift D, okay? And then move the object to where you like it. And then now every time you press Shift D, it's gonna clone that object with that transformation that you did, right? With that little move that you did. You could also do this with rotating, right? Or scaling. I'll just show you, I'll kind of show you what this looks like again. So here's my first object. I hit Control D and then Shift D. And now I'm gonna just do a little rotation. Okay. And then now every time I hit Shift D, it rotates the same amount that I did for the first one. Okay. Okay, so that's Shift D after you've used Control D, okay? And the last one I'm going to show you is what's called duplicate special. Now I'll do the same little golf ball cutout that I was doing on this one. Okay, just so you can kind of see. Okay, I'm going to select this, Shift, hold that, and I'm going to go to Mesh, Booleans, and Difference. Okay, so I have my object here. And what duplicate special will do is, let me select the object here. If I come up to Edit and Duplicate Special, go ahead and click on this little settings box here, and I'll show you a couple different things here. So the first is copy an instance, right? So copy is going to just make a copy of the object rather than instance, where instance will have kind of a parent function, and I'll show you what that does. So under copy, you see you can change, you can duplicate a move, a rotation, and a scale number of copies, right? I'm gonna leave that at 8. And so right now I have 45 on the y-axis, meaning that every time this object copies, it's gonna rotate 45 degrees, okay? So I'm gonna go to duplicate special, and you see it duplicate special, it gave me 8 copies here, okay? And then two other things I wanna show you. So right now, double click the move tool, and this should be on world for default, right? And I'll show you why I'm doing this. So I'm going to go back to edit, duplicate special again. Okay, keep it on copy. I'm going to rotate 45 degrees, keep everything else the same, and duplicate special. So all my copies came out, and they're all moving together as one, even though I could select them individually and move them, right? But I want to show you what I mean by changing the orientation here. So before you duplicate special, come to the move tool, double click, and now change this to object, meaning now each one of those objects is going to copy and move on its own y-axis, right? So I'm going to go to edit, duplicate special. Okay, so 45 degrees, they're all going to be copied 45 degrees. They're all still copies. But again, I have the axis set to object now. So that means each object has its own axis of orientation. And the reason why this is cool and important, oops, sorry, I didn't even duplicate special. The reason why this is cool is because now every object will move on its own rotated axis, right? So pretty cool. And notice that they're all selected right now. So if I do a movement to one, it's going to move all of them. Okay, that's just because they're all selected. But with the copy, right, if I let go here, copy, right, they're clones, so they're all independent from each other. Okay, let me keep undoing here. And now I want to show you the difference between copy and instance here. So I selected my objects, edit, duplicate special. Okay, now I'm going to change this to instance. Now what this does is this makes each object a clone, right? And it's similar to parenting, but it only works for some things here. So now all objects are a clone. Okay, so if I deselect and let's say I go to face mode, right? So every time I do one change to one, right, it's going to do that to all of them. Whereas before on the copy, it would not do this. It does this with clone. Okay, so this can be, right, you can think of anything that you might be creating that needs, multiple copies or regular repeating patterns or anything with radial symmetry, right? You can just kind of create one area and then use these duplicate options to kind of fully, cut your workload down by a lot. So that's duplicate, right? Control D with the Shift D, and then duplicate special. The other thing I want to show you is mirror. Okay, so mirror is exactly what it sounds like. It's where you mirror an object. Oh, and then to get rid of this, you would delete the object's history. So here, to get rid of this red preview, you would just come up to Edit, Delete by Type, History. That'll take that away. Okay. So so for mirror, you have to remember. So I'm gonna change the axis orientation back to world. Okay. So mirror is really important. What's really important with mirror is you have to remember which axis you're trying to mirror with, the X, the Y, or the Z. So for example, let's say I have this object here, and then I'm going to go to mesh. Where is it? Oh yeah, mesh, and then mirror. So go ahead and click on the settings box here. And this is going to bring up some options here for you. All you really have to think about is keep this on world for the most part. I mean, maybe when we get a little bit further along, we'll change these, but you can mirror on your X, your Y, and your Z. Okay, so Z right here is your horizontal axis. If I mirror here, I get another one the exact same distance from the Z axis middle. Okay, so if you wanted to make more symmetry with an object, right? If you didn't want that gap, then you would want to move your object so it's right touching that Z axis right here. And then now if I go to mesh and mirror along the Z axis, right? Then the object, right? There is no space between the two objects here. Okay, so this can be useful when we start doing character stuff. There's other features that you can do to build symmetry while you're, building. But this can be useful, for example, if you wanted to, let's say you had a sphere, right? And I'm going to delete half of the sphere, right down this middle axis, delete here. So let's say you wanted to make something symmetrical, and let's say we're playing around here. We're building one side of something, whether it's a building or a person, right? You're doing something, then you need this to be mirrored exactly on the other side, right? This is where mirror can come in handy. Go back to object mode and mesh. And mirror. Okay, so that will do the exact same thing on the other side. And again, so that's on the Z axis, right? If you were wanting to go vertical, you would go on the Y axis. And if you were going to go front and back, you would do your X. Okay, so that's duplicate and mirror. Okay.